Good evening and welcome to transportation discussion for state and local requirements for Texas and Atlanta ISD. We'll be starting off with the requirements for transporting students and then transitioning to bus driver requirements. All right, so as I said, let's start off with transporting students and everything that's involved with it according to the state and local guidelines. Our discussion outline will cover the following topics, starting with state and district requirements, and then going to licensing and certification for the bus drivers. State requirements. Well, if you look in the Texas Education Code, there's plenty of information out there to let you know how these operations are supposed to go. In section 34002, it starts off with safety standards. And the Department of Public Safety, with the advice of TEA, will establish safety standards for school buses used to transport students. So that's going to be in their hands. This moves us on to 34.003, which is the operation of school buses. And it talks about school buses or mass transit motor buses shall be used for the transportation of students to and from schools on routes having 10 or more students. On routes with less than 10 students, passenger cars may be used, but if it's above 10 on a route, then it needs to be a school bus. Outside of that, for extracurricular trips or anything of that nature, with 15 or more students, a bus must be used. If it's less than 15 students, then cars or vans are able to be used. And it also talks about the driver or operator must ensure that the correct vehicles are used to transport the correct amount of students. So it's on the transportation director, also the bus driver, him or herself, to make sure that they're following proper procedure. The next two sections, 34005 and 6, are dealing with rules about purchasing, laws about financing, how you can sell your school bus, where the money goes, all those kinds of issues relating to finance. On to the local requirements. The first thing it talks about on the local policy is hazardous traffic conditions in high risk areas. It says if the district applies for the additional transportation allotment that is provided by the state for students who live within 2 miles of a school campus, the board shall adopt a resolution to identify hazardous traffic conditions or areas presenting a high risk of violence within 2 miles of the campus. So kids that are experiencing these types of issues that may not have regular access to transportation because they live so close to the school, if the school wishes to use this allotment, that they have the discretion to do so. It also talks about the authority under which we're able to maintain one. And it says a board may establish and operate an economic public school transportation system. And so that gives us, the state, the local districts, the authority to maintain a fleet of buses. There's also a transportation allotment, and this is entitled to an allotment based on a rate per mile per quote unquote regular eligible student. And it defines a regular eligible student as a student who resides 2 or more miles from the student's campus of regular attendance. So if you're outside that 2 miles, then you would have access to these to and from school bus routes. And then it talks about transportation companies, outside transportation companies. We're allowed to use charter buses, for you can use, like I know some schools in Bowie County use Bowie County school bus systems, and they, I think Pleasant Grove ISD, and then maybe New Boston or some of those, they use the Bowie County transportation system to do that. So this allows us to do that. Atlanta, we have our own school buses and our own drivers, so we don't take advantage of that. But we do use charter buses from time to time for out-of-town band trips or math and science state teams or football, like playoff football games and things of that nature. So these rules and provide for that. All right. Bus driver requirements right off the bat, 18 years of age. You need to go obtain a Class B CDL with the passenger and school bus endorsements. You get that from the DPS office. That is a very involved and rigorous process. I own one. I am a CDL holder myself. You also must pass an annual mental and physical exam administered by a DOT certified doctor. A lot of times your district will pay for that. Atlanta ISD does. And then you have to take a 20-hour school bus safety certification. And every 3 years, you have to get an 8-hour recertification. So you don't want to let that lapse, because then you got to start all the way over and do the 20-hour again. You don't want to do that. And then you cannot be a felon or have been convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude. So transportation, vital aspect of any campus leader's job. And so it's very important to be abreast of all the important information. And I think we covered a lot here tonight.